What you are about to hear is a true account of an American, a Californian, who was engaged in the distribution of raw milk, a wholesome, natural food upon which our country, our nation was founded. But he has been subjected to torture. He was nearly killed. He survived 8 days of torture in the LA County jail system and lived to tell about it. In his own words, you will now hear him talk about what happened to him in the LA County jail and how he has been targeted and punished for being the milkman. These are the words of James Stewart of Rawesome Foods, recorded the morning of March 10th, 2012. I'm Mike Adams, the health ranger, asking the questions, and the other voice you will hear is James Stewart.
Can you go through how you were treated, the hypothermia, the raw sewage, the being shackled, all of it, the interrogation?
Sure. You know, when I, as I said to you before, when I was handcuffed in this sort of grandstanding event that happened in the courtroom, which was completely unnecessary, I was taken down and put into a holding cell underneath the jail for, I'm guessing it was 11 o'clock, and they handcuffed me till about 5 in the afternoon. And that was a holding cell with a minimum 20 or 30 guys in there. Yes, there was a phone. Yes, there was a sink toilet, but we were fed no food. I was given no food the entire time I was there, underneath there. And by the way, when I woke up that morning, thinking it was just going to be a simple court appearance to make another appearance, I had eaten nothing, nor had drinking anything. So by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I had drunk nothing except tap water out of this little sink, and I had eaten no food whatsoever and given no food whatsoever.
So this is, just to get the date right, this is March...
That's March 2nd. That was the Friday that we were in court and arrested.
So you were, just to be clear, you're in court to appear at a preliminary hearing for LA County, and then Ventura County deputies leaped over the bar and did an ambush arrest there in the court.
Well, I don't think it was Ventura deputies. I think it was just more sheriffs that they said they had a warrant out for me in Ventura, so they arrested me because, you know, that's their job, is to arrest people when there's warrants out there.
So how come they didn't take you to Ventura immediately? Why did they take you to L.A. jail?
It's a good question. Why didn't they take me to? I don't know. I mean, I was assuming. I actually said that when I was in the holding cell. Why am I not going to Ventura? Why am I being held in L.A. if I have a? Well, it's too late, and they're probably not going to come and get you until Monday or something. And I mean, and by the way, I only got that answer once. Many times between the time where I was arrested and the time where I was in that holding cell, I asked sheriffs or the whatever you call them, the law enforcement officials there that were booking me or whatever they were doing, what are the charges? I never got to see any charges. I kept on saying, how can you arrest somebody without knowing what the charges are? This is not legal to do that. So they never showed me the charges. I never was told what the bail amount was. I never was told anything about it whatsoever. They just be silent, and when you ask them questions, they actually get belligerent with you when you ask them questions. Are you trying to make trouble? Are you trying to make trouble? You know, it's like, you know, that's what you get back from them when you're trying to be civil and ask them questions. Okay.
Wow.
So then I'm handcuffed, taken out of this holding cell around 5, and transported in handcuffs on a bus over to the Los Angeles downtown jail, which is, by the way, considered the worst in the country. It's called Twin Towers. And they first put you into a room, then they come and unhandcuff you. They always make you look at the floor. They make you comply. They're very stern and rough and even aggressive, but not physically aggressive, verbally aggressive, okay? Mm-hmm. So I was there last year, so I thought I'll just go through the same, you know, booking and procedure or whatnot. No, I'm taken out of line, which I think is very strange, and I'm taken to an office. And in the office are 2 deputy sheriffs, fairly young guys. I'd say probably in their mid-30s or whatnot. I know the one's man name who then started to interrogate me and accuse me of stuff. His name was Sexton, Sexton. Mm-hmm. Don't know his first name, but he said, "Are you a sovereign?" And I said, "What's that?" He says, "No, you know what that is. You're a sovereign." You know, and I kept on saying, "Sir, I don't know what you're talking about." You know, and so this went on for about, I'd say, 5 or 10 minutes, and he finally said, "Well, you're going to be a danger to the population." I didn't admit to anything in there, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I finally just said to him, I really don't think I should be saying any more in here. And so they take me out, put me into jail garb, and then they put a red band on me, which is now supposedly a danger to the general population of the jail itself. So they're accusing me, I guess, because of the accusation of being a terrorist, i.e. a sovereign, which I never used the word ever. They're the only ones that ever used that word. They put a red band on me, which I didn't know at that moment what that meant.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this reminds me, the FBI put out alerts a few weeks back saying that so-called sovereign citizens or sovereign individuals are a threat to law enforcement and might just shoot people at any time. So it sounds like they were using that, you know, fear-mongering by the FBI, and then just basically declaring you to be guilty of being a sovereign, which is no crime anyway. I mean, all of us are sovereign citizens. The people run the country, really, you know, read the Constitution. But it sounds like they're using that to then convict you of being a sovereign and then give you this treatment.
Well, using that to now completely torture and abuse me, which is now what we're about to talk about, because then they took this long chain about, I guess, probably 15 feet long and wrapped it around my waist about 2-3 times, and then put my hands behind me, and then put the handcuffs on, attached to these long chains around my waist. The red band was put on my arm, which I didn't know what it meant at that point, and put into an area where I was supposed to go get medical tests, and now it's, my guess is about probably 6:15, 6:30 maybe, and instead of just being in there with already handcuffed behind me, and the handcuffs were so tight, I thought my wrists were going to break off. Trust me, I have very wide wrists, and so he then takes me over to a bench in this area, and besides being handcuffed and shackled, I'm now handcuffed to the bench as well. So now I can't move more than 6 inches either way. I don't have a great back. I'm 65 years old, okay? This is not some young guy who can handle this kind of abuse, okay? Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there on this bench for hours. I'm guessing 4 or 5 hours. And they eventually, one guy from the medical pod, whatever you call that, Richards, his name was Richards. He was the only nice guy there. He came over and moved my hand from behind me to along my side, but never removed the chain, and eventually unhandcuffed me from the bench, but that was hours later. Then they forced me to take chest x-rays, and they forced me to go through medical tests while still handcuffed, okay? Even while I was taking an EKG test, I'm lying on the table handcuffed. So I thought, okay, I've had it already. I'm dying here. This is completely just incredible abuse.
But isn't that, would you consider that torture, what they did?
That's what I already wrote that down. I would consider it worse than torture, because not only are you being, they're not kicking your ribs in, but they're actually torturing you mentally and physically, okay? This is a combination of mental and physical torture to break you down, probably to make you into a sovereign or a violent criminal or whatnot, because now you're so angry about what they're doing to you that you come unglued. And I just kept my composure, and then eventually at midnight, after finishing all the medical tests, I think I'm being taken to a jail cell where I can finally lie down on a bed. And no, they take me to an area of the jail where there's nobody there, and there's a bunch of, detention cells and whatnot. Take the handcuffs off, put me into the cell with nothing more than a T-shirt and a pair of pants, which probably, temperature-wise, is probably in the mid-50s in there, and leave me there for 3 hours, freezing to death, okay? And I was shaking. I was in hypothermia at that point. They finally got me, I'm guessing, around 3 o'clock in the morning, and finally took me to a cell. Well, this cell was in a part of the jail that it's called, the cell I was in was Denver 22, and it was 2 tiers, but the bottom tier was the cage but open to the top tier. So you heard a total of 52 cells because there was either 26 or 27. No lights, pretty much no comfort, a 1-inch foam pad that didn't even support your weight, and so your hips were ground into the metal of the bed, and left with through in the door a baggie with 2 pieces of bread, 2 cookies, and a little tiny bag of peeled carrots. And that is all I've had now since Thursday night, and I kept on saying, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, drink the tap water, that's all you're going to get, okay? They never gave me any food until 3 o'clock in the morning and threw a baggie of it on the floor in there. So I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die in here. So I tried to get some sleep, but because of this particular part of the jail, people are yelling and screaming all night. They're banging on the walls. They're singing. They're all tattooed, gang members and whatnot. And this is where I'm supposed to get some peace and quiet. Okay, I never slept that night. Now I'm in sleep deprivation. If you don't think that's torture, try it yourself after about 2 days. Okay, and so the next morning, when some of them were taken away to go to, I guess, court or wherever else they were going, I tried to get some sleep between, I'm guessing, 8 and 11 or 12. And the next thing I know is the guy below, he's below me but he's in the cell next door because the way the cells are configured, one cell has the bunk above and the other cell has the bunk below, but they're actually right above each other. So he starts banging on the cell, hey, dude, and he's like, he's screaming at me, and I'm like, I don't know if the guy's trying to mess with me or what he's trying to do, I don't know. And he finally says, hey, dude, man, you look in your cell. And I smelled it. I'm like, it smells like the toilet's overflowed, and I look over. My toilet hasn't overflowed, but there's nothing. There's shit floating in the floor. There's sewage coming down the hallway. I look out the jail from sitting up on the bed. Somebody has flooded the whole tier with toilet water, which is now running into everybody's cells, and because they were awake, they took towels and whatnot to divert it away from their own cell. So now it's all in mine. The cell is about 2 inches, 3 inches deep with all of this sewage water floating.
Raw sewage.
Floating around in my cell. Now I can't, my shirt was on the floor, my shoes were on the floor, so they're all, wet with all this stuff, so I don't try to get them.
Well, just interrupt, but how absurd is it that this whole thing started because they say you sold raw milk containing live bacteria, and then to incarcerate you, they throw you in a cell with shit flowing through it that is obviously loaded with live bacteria. I mean, if the state is supposed to be about sanitation, how can they punish you by throwing you in a cell with raw sewage?
Well, it was my point as well, Mike, because, even the guy below me, I said, well, they'll come and clean it up, won't they? I was hyperventilating because the smell was intense. And he said, hey, dude, man, they're not going to come for hours. And I said, oh, come on. And he said, no, I'm serious. And so he was right. Maybe 3 hours, maybe even 3 or 4 hours later, finally a crew of inmates who they call trustees came in to try to clean it all up. Do they come actually into your cell to clean your cell? No, they don't. They hand you the squeegee to try to squeegee it out yourself while you're
kidding me.
While you're up on your bunk, and now the squeegee has splashed all over the bottom of the desk and all over the bottom of the walls, and then they hand you the very mop that they've been using to clean up the shit, and they say, well, just clean out the rest of your cell with this mop. The mop that already is just contaminated with all this bacteria. They never came into the cell. They never cleaned anything up. They tried to make me do it, and of course, I was like...
So they expose you to... I mean, you could be exposed to cholera, you could be exposed to deadly pathogens,